Monza was magnificent, but when is it not? We have, though, tonight a very different proposition for the drivers in the W Series Esports League, because we are heading to the circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, virtually, of course. Hello and welcome to week 2 of W Series 2020, and it is very different to W Series 2019, but then again, everything is different, isn't it? We have new circuits, new drivers, new ways of competing, and even tonight we have a new face joining us. Luke Crane is back for more. He is, of course, our W Series Esports commentator, and alongside him this evening is Billy Munger, racing driver and esports guru. Billy, have I bigged you up enough? Can I call you that?
I think off the back of my esports results in this quarantine period, I wouldn't go with guru.
Okay, but we do know what you can do in a car, and esports racing has provided everyone with that release that they can actually have some fun but also hone their skills.
It really has been over the last few months, especially. I know the amount of hours I've racked up on spending on my simulator in the esports world that I'm fairly new to, and honing your skills, getting that sort of sensation of driving something, although it's not real life. It's definitely been something that I've really enjoyed throughout quarantine.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it's worth pointing out at this stage that our W Series champion, Jamie Chadwick, will not be competing tonight because she has signed to do another series, which is taking to the tracks of Europe. So real cars, real tracks, and it's heading to Mugello for some testing. So that's where she is just now, but she will come back and contest some rounds as and when her racing commitments allow. And I suppose that's a good point, Billy, in that this is a wonderful substitute for motor racing, but real racing drivers love to go racing, don't they?
Yeah, as much as spending time on a simulator and in the esports world has been great over quarantine and over the last few months, I know every driver out there is missing being behind the wheel. And as a substitute, it's the best we've got. And it's still a great opportunity to, like you say, hone your skills and to develop as a driver in general. Because simulators in our day and age now are a big part of being a professional racing driver. But it's not the same. And everyone's going to be, absolutely buzzing to get back behind the wheel as soon as possible.
Yeah, but look, if this is the substitute, then my goodness, what a great substitute to have, as Billy said. And we talked about the experienced W Series racing drivers from last year, but there's also this new crop of drivers coming through. And it was really interesting to see that they weren't letting those experienced drivers get everything their own way.
Absolutely. We saw some of the more experienced real-life racing drivers at the top of the timesheet. Some of them were near the bottom of the timesheets, but the young crop were also the same. It's quite a level playing field. I think the biggest talking point was Vissa and Sidorkova right on the opposite sides of the spectrum, although Vissa's still a very young lady herself, so we're sort of calling her the old guard, but ultimately they're all pretty young. But in terms of experience levels, it was great to see them duking it out side by side, battling for those points, and those two are the two that we have to watch out for moving forward.
I'd just like to say, you're calling her the old guard. I'm having nothing to do with that statement. But of course, Bicycle Vissa did win 2 of those races last week, and that puts her right at the top of the championship leaderboard so far, 49 points. And Irina Sidorkova, Luke mentioned her, 16-year-old Russian driver. We didn't know too much about her until last week, and there she is, second in the championship. A great week as well for Gosha Rades, who was on the podium a couple of times, putting her into third. Marty, another new driver, she's in fourth. Tasman Pepper in fifth. And Emma Kimilainen, she won the reverse grid race 2 and sits in sixth position. And it's worth just explaining the format because, as I was mentioning, there are 3 races every night that we have for you and full points available for every race. And Billy, I'm just interested into the sort of tactics, if that's the right word, that goes on, because when there's full points available, there's 2 races from a sort of standard qualifying, as it were, and then a reverse grid. If things aren't going so well for a driver in race 1, is it in the sort of psyche of a driver to drop back a little bit thinking of race 2, particularly when there's full points available?
Well, every driver on the grid, we're fierce competitors. We want to maximise the potential from the weekend, or in this example, over these next few hours of competition. And if the point system, which it kind of allows it with the top 4 points, it being a slightly more staggered in terms of the 1 point gaps that you have nearer down the back of the grid, people are going to try and exploit the system as much as they can. And if that means that giving up a few positions to start up in the top 4 for the reverse grid race is what they plan to do, in order to maximise points. I can't say that entirely that I don't think that some people will be sort of employing those tactics, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm obviously a much bigger cynic, which explains one of the reasons that I'm not a professional sports person. Now, I mentioned last week it was Visser who won 2 out of those 3 races, and I'm delighted to say that earlier on, just before qualifying, I spoke to her. Bajska, great to see you. What an incredible start you made last week, but I know that you have been busy both training physically and on the sim during lockdown, and it's certainly paying off. I know you'd love to be racing, but this is as good as it gets just now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in the time that we can't race for real, this is the closest we can get. Obviously, we still miss like the feeling of real racing. I would love to get back into a real car, but yeah, also on the simulator we can fight with other drivers and stay sharp. So I'm enjoying it.
And you've been doing quite a lot of different series of sim racing. It must be great for you that W Series have created this esports league.
Yeah, I got my simulator like 2 months ago. And then I started driving pretty much everything I could. So yeah, it has helped me a lot, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm improving every time.
And we're getting to go to some great circuits, even though we can't travel there ourselves, but they are fantastic circuits that W Series are going to. And tonight we've got the Circuit of Americas. It's like a roller coaster, so different to Monza. Do you get that same feeling when you're heading up that turn 1 when you see a little bit of light?
On the sim you don't really have that, but yeah, COTA is a really cool track. It's very different compared to Monza. It's really flowing, really fast. But also we've seen in practice session track limits are quite an issue. So it will be a challenge in qualifying to even get 1 lap in without track limits. But yeah, I think it's gonna be cool.
Bajska, great to speak to you. Best of luck tonight.
Thank you.
Well, great to hear from Bajska there. Let's find out, in fact, how she and the other drivers are getting on. Luke and Billy, you can take us through qualifying for race 1.
Thank you, Lee. Round 2 brings us to COTA, one of only 26 Grade 1 motorsports facilities in the world. A very tough circuit. My name is Luke Crane, aka Actual Vision, and I am here with Billy Wiz. Billy Munger, how you doing, mate?
All good. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Well, we are here for a bit of qualifying around COTA. We were at Monza last week. You weren't here with us. I was with DC, Billy. But COTA, what trials and tribulations are they going to be going through here today?
It's a very technical circuit. It's got a bit of everything: high speed, slow speed. The first sector in particular, a lot of commitment, especially in those chicanes. It's going to be interesting to see how the racing unfolds.
Yeah, it's going to be great here. We're in qualifying. We've got 10 minutes of qualifying here. They get 3 attempts at a lap time. We take their fastest qualifying time, and then they are on pole position, if they are the fastest, that is. And then we've got a reversed grid after this, which will be the finishing positions of race number 1. That'll be another 15-minute time race. There's 2 15-minute races and then a feature race, the final race, which is 20 minutes, an extra 5 minutes on the board, but there will be qualifying for that as well. So it's vital to get stuff underway as quickly as possible. We're on board here with the championship leader, Bajska Visser. Last week won 2 races out of the 3, struggled in the second race. I say struggled, still got big points, and that's why she leads the championship as it stands. And well, Billy, take us through the start of this lap.
So as we come up here, the hill into turn 1, very difficult to kind of get a picture of where to hit the brakes here, because your view's slightly obscured for the apex. She looked like she did that very well. Again, it's about getting a clean exit as well, because this high-speed sector, you're going to carry that momentum all the way through turns 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So many corners in sector number 1. Such a technical part of this circuit, and it's one of those circuits that has sort of 3 or 4 layouts in one. You've got the very technical circuit here for sector number 1, and the middle sector is a little bit easier for you. You've just got to keep your foot on the loud pedal for the most part of it, and then you've got the final sector again, which is all about setting yourself up nicely to hit apexes and indeed maximise your time here. What are you expecting from these drivers today, Billy? Are you expecting some of the drivers may not have got the best points last week to indeed take the opportunity today, or are you expecting to see the same results as what we saw last week?
Well, obviously, some drivers are going to be more experienced than others when it comes to the sim, and I would have thought that the widest sort of gap in experience would be at the first event last week. I would have thought that the gaps would have closed up this week. We might see some new faces near the front of the grid, and I'm sure all these the girls at the back of the grid that were maybe a bit disappointed with their results, they'll be aiming to finish a lot higher this week.
Absolutely. I think we're going to see that across this whole championship. I think I say championship, the Esports Series, the Esports League. We are going to see these drivers progress and get better and better as the weeks do indeed go on. And we spoke last week with DC about the importance of race number 2, the reverse grid. And it's going to be harder and harder and harder to get through the pack starting near the back as the weeks progress. Like we're talking about the drivers getting faster and faster and faster. And it's kind of maximizing the early weeks where people are least experienced. Billy, how would you see that?
I see, yeah, race 2 is going to be very exciting to watch, and that's for sure. Like you say, as everyone gets more experience, as the gaps close up between the drivers, it's going to make it more of a challenge to pass and sort of weave your way through the grid to get up to the front and score some big points. But that's what it's all about. It's an extra challenge for the drivers. I personally enjoy overtaking. I think that's one of the best parts of being a racing driver, is that thrill of being running side by side with someone at high-end speeds and inches between you. So I'm sure, although it's in the virtual world, it will give these girls the same thrills as it does in a real car.
Absolutely, could not agree with you more there. And we're watching Visser. Visser's just gone and taken provisional pole position here, 2:04.468. And in practice, the quickest time from Bicycle Visser was a 2:04.5. So a tenth of a second there. Looks like she might have been playing mind games already. You may be wondering why not all drivers have got a lap time in yet. Well, if you do indeed run past the track limits that iRacing has set out, you will get a 1x. And that means your lap time will not count. And, you know, Billy, this is a very long circuit here, around about just over 2 minutes a lap here. So just getting that banker time is absolutely vital. And a couple of drivers maybe just struggling with that right now.
It's actually something that I've struggled with myself when I've done sim races on iRacing before. Being able to just whip out all your performance, all those little tiny details you've been working on in that hour-long practice session, and being able to put that into 3 laps. And if you make a mistake in an early lap, the pressure builds. Obviously, you don't have that banker lap in the bag. So I think for Biecki Visser, who's 8 tenths up the road still at the minute, it's very good to have that sort of performance in the bag early doors.
Yeah, you're spot on there. You know, these drivers would have done 2-3 hour sessions at a time in practice to maximize their lap times. But right now, this is where the pressure is on. This is where they earn their grid position for indeed race number 1. We're on board then with star of the show last week, Sidakova. She's about to cross the line here and put her first time in, hopefully, if she hasn't indeed obviously gone across the track limits. Visser is done here at 2:04.4. And, wow. Actually, we've still not got a time in for Sidakova by the looks of things here. And, well, real struggle. This is not what we were expecting to see from Sidakova. Expecting her to indeed progress from last week's strong performance. Has not quite gone the way of the young Russian. But Marta Garcia has just put it onto the front row of the grid there. So, as it stands, then it is going to be Visser who is on pole. And it was a very, very good lap time again. And looks like Visser's the one to beat, Billy.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, that performance that she put that in, I think, on her first flying lap, 4 tenths up the road to everyone else. That's an incredible lap time. I've raced on iRacing against Biecki. I know how talented she is on the sim, and that she's obviously been putting in the hours, and that's just proven right there with that incredible lap.
And we saw last week Wood was so good in qualifying, just couldn't nail it in the race. Is this the time that we're going to see her change her fortunes?
Yeah, well, qualifying is obviously a big part of a racing driver's weekend. In F1, it's almost make or break with where you'll qualify. But in sim racing, you get the sort of effective dirty air when you're following drivers, but it still seems fairly easy to make passes and to make overtakes. And so I think we'll see action. I think we're seeing changes all throughout the grid. So it's definitely not over yet.
Yeah, like you said, there's going to be action. There's going to be overtakes. If there's ever a turn 1 that favours not being on pole position, it is COTA. Like, how many different lines are there, Billy? 4, 5, 6? Could be 7. We could see some crazy action as they all are indeed gridding up here. We're about to go racing then for round number 2, race number 1. And we do go green here then, ladies and gentlemen. And it is Visser who gets a terrible start. So Wood up into P1 then. And I think Marta Garcia is going to take P1 as well. So already 2 changes of lead. We've got 4 cars trying to go into 1. 3 wide through turn 1, through the apex. And they all get through there nicely. And what has happened here? Visser is in P3. It's all good. But Marta Garcia leads the way then through this first technical section. It's so difficult to make an overtake through here, so got the job done early. Fantastic stuff then. Wood already down into P4, and Marty, new driver to the championship, up into P2. What a start, Billy.
Yeah, it was really action-packed. Like we were talking about turn 1, it's so wide, there's so many different lines. You saw at one point, I think there was like 4 drivers there side by side with each other, and eventually the corner closes up. These girls are obviously competitive, they don't want to give up the space. and that's where we saw a bit of contact towards the back of the grid, action-packed to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. Marta Garcia was actually a winner in round number 4 in the W Series last year. So there's a bit of contact in the background there. Not too sure who those two were. We're on board with Bruno Tomaselli running a little bit wide there out of the apex before they head onto this big long straight. You don't want to be making mistakes before you head onto a long straight. Of course, you want to maximize your speed before you get up towards the next corner. And wow, the top 3 battling for position here. Marta Garcia leads the way, but it is actually Marty and Visser battling for P2. And it looks like, wow, there's a bit of a wide, proper wide there by Marty. We'll get away with it though. Don't want to be doing that too often in the race. You will indeed get a stop-go penalty, but it does hold on to Visser in P3. Wood then in P4 again, struggling from a great qualifying here, Billy, and now only in P4.
Yeah, she's lost a few positions on the first lap here, and all of this battling that's going on with for the lower down positions is giving Marta Garcia an opportunity to try and break the toe, which in iRacing is very important to do so, because if you're in the toe range, especially around COTA, you've got that long straight in sector 2, it gives an opportunity for overtaking, so she'll be trying her hardest to try and break that toe gap, but I think at the minute it looked a bit too tight early on in the race.
Yeah, absolutely spot on there. It's going to be a long-winded one as we come up towards the end of lap number 1. It is Marta Garcia that leads the race then. And then we've got Marty, who is in P2. But look at this move there. Bicycle Visser trying to make the move up the inside and not quite worked out for her. There we go. And there you say Belen Garcia. We're on board with Belen Garcia as it stands, down in P8. And, well, look at Sidorkova then. Did not get a lap time in. Started P19. Already up to P10, so showing again, not necessarily quickest over 1 lap, Billy, but in race time, that is when the game face really comes on.
First laps in motorsport are so difficult. You always go in with some sort of a plan in your head. Okay, if you're starting near the back, I'm going to go to the outside and try and go around the outside of a few people, maybe look at the inside and other tracks. But the main thing on this is just keeping out of trouble, and Sidorkova has definitely done that from 19th up to 10th. That's a really good first lap, and now she's looking at some fairly decent points, but she's still got more positions to make up to get near the championship leader, Bielski Visser.
There we go. Bielski Visser then is in that slipstream, in that toe, down in towards the hairpin here at COTA. And while Visser, for the 3rd time here, going side by side, and as soon as she pulls out of the slipstream, just loses some straight line speed. So I'm wondering whether there might have been some contact here and a little bit of damage. They head up towards the hairpin here. Such a long run before they start another long run, to be fair. You can see that actually Visser will get into P2 then. So Marty moves down into P3. And this battle, I think, is indeed going to last out this whole race here. They've got Wood in behind them then, trying to get a little bit of redemption from the good qualifying, poor race start. And then we've got Powell up to P5. Great stuff there. Then Hawkins in P6, and then winner from race number 2. It is Kimmerleinen in P7. Belen Garcia is in P8. Redest then flew under the radar last week, did Redest. Currently in the top 4 of the championship. Didn't really have any standout performances. It just goes to show that consistency is indeed key to win or to get to the top of the Esports League here. And then in 10th position is Sidorkova. Sidorkova is only 0.3 of a second down behind Redest here. So we might see a move here from that very young Russian. Well, I tell you what, here we go. Maybe a late lunge up the inside. No, a bit more calculated here, and actually wants to set herself up then for the next straight. And you can see, look at the exit speed there again as we come across the start finish line up towards turn number 1. And wow, very, very aggressive defense work there by Redest. And well, Sidorkova's been forced to go around the outside. Will she be late of the last breakers? Well, there's actually a back marker there as well. Side by side, then contact between the two drivers. And well, it's more than, it wasn't Redest, it was more. Some more has actually just made an overtake on Sidorkova. So Redest wasn't even in the picture there. It was for P10. And well, Moore has got herself up ahead of Sidorkova, and she's not worried about what Sidorkova did last week. It's all about this week here, and Moore up into that top 10.
Yeah, Sidorkova there. She got caught out. She was obviously looking straight ahead, looking at the move in front of her, and failed to register what was behind her. And that might be the experience and the age coming into play there in a situation like that, where you've got someone behind you that you need to defend from, whilst also being on the attack and trying to make up positions. And in that situation, it's caught her out, and she's dropped out of the top 10, so she's still got some more work to do to try and fight for them higher end points.
Yeah, psychologically though, Billy, you know, very poor qualifying, not getting that lap time in, which means you're fighting a losing battle from the start of this race. To be in P11, you know, it's still pretty damn good for where she started. But again, psychologically, how's that going to affect your approach in the race?
Yeah, obviously, the first lap was great from her, 19th through into the top 10. So she was obviously, she'd be pretty happy with that, and she'd just be looking at, in front of her, which she clearly was. She was looking at making the move stick on Ardest, but Sarah Moore, ever the opportunist, she really took advantage of the wide line that Sedakova was trying to use there to get either a switchback or go completely around the outside. There's so many different lines, like we said at turn 1, that it provides lots of opportunities for overtaking, and we saw that in action right there.
Also, it's an uphill braking zone as well, so you know you really can take some chances up into turn number 1. Although it is blind, you can't see anything on the exit, so you need to make sure you do indeed hit that apex. Although there are about 760 apexes there by the looks of the way we can make overtakes, which is great to see. Let's talk a little bit about the front. Well, P2 and P3 then. So Visser has got ahead of Marti now, an 0.8 of a second gap then to Neria Marti. Marti, who was momentarily leading this race, so was Visser, but it is indeed Marta Garcia that leads out the way. 7/10 clear then of Visser. And well, could Marta Garcia become our 3rd race winner in 4 races today? Again, it looks like Visser is closing down, and you know, what was it, 1.8 seconds? Of course, Visser had to make the overtake on Marti. What's going through Marta Garcia's head right now, Billy?
This is always a tricky situation to be in. You're in the lead of the race, you want a nice gap, you want to be relaxed as possible, but when you've got someone like Bietski Visser coming from 1.8 seconds down to 4/10, it clearly looks like she's got a clear pace advantage over Marta Garcia. And there's still 8 minutes left of the race. There's still multiple laps left of this race. If it was last lap, you may think, okay, I can defend this, but at the rate she's coming, I think Marta Garcia is now fully watching her mirrors and trying to predict where she's going to place the car to keep the lead.
Yeah, it certainly won't be easy. They are all professional racing drivers, of course. They've actually got a back marker here to deal with as well. I'm not too sure who that might be. Is it Abby Eaton? I think they've already lapped Piria. It might be Piria, actually, as they come down in towards the hairpin here. We will just get a look here, and actually the back marker's out of the way there. We don't see who it was. And Visser does take the lead of this race then up in towards, and actually used the back marker there a little bit, because the Marta Garcia could not get the maximum to open up that hairpin. So Visser now leads the race here, and now Marta has got to try and get back ahead here. Visser has been the dominant driver so far in this championship, and well, it doesn't seem like it's changing anytime soon.
Yeah, Marta Garcia has really got to use these few corners here in particular to look at any line differences that she may have to Visser, trying to pick up in this situation like this when you've been caught from so far back. Obviously, you need to stay with them as close as possible to try and gain from the toe, but you're just trying to monitor and sort of understand everything they're doing differently to you, so you can adapt, change, and gain more performance. You see she runs a little bit wide there. She's obviously pushing very hard to try and stay right behind Visser here and not let her run away into the distance.
With 6 minutes 30 seconds left then, it is Visser in the lead now, nearly by already a second. But the battle for P3 is really heating up then. We've got Marti, Wood and Powell all very close indeed then. There we go. As we come through turn number 1, come through that very technical sector number 1. And it's Marti then, again, who was momentarily in the lead up towards turn number 1. Has now got to try and be that cork in the bowl. Again, trying to battle for the lead of this race unless there's a big mistake. It's going to become very, very difficult with only 6 minutes left. But trying to maximise, trying to get that podium is absolutely huge. But Wood, again, last week we saw in the races, just kept making silly little mistakes. But today, although there's been a mistake to drop down the order here from P2, seems to be fighting back pretty strongly here. But then they've got Alice Powell in behind them that indeed is going to try and get the maximum here as well. They're all in the top 5 pretty comfortably here with Hawkins 3 seconds adrift in P6. And this is really heating up now, Billy.
Yeah, it is. And this, what we've just come out of that tight hairpin there. This is the longest straight on the track, the best opportunity for overtaking. You can see Alice has got the toe and she's up the inside of Wood, but Wood's also going to be slotting in behind Marti to try and get that toe effect back herself to pull her along. It's an action-packed braking zone, this, and it looks like Alice has got the inside line here, is going to make this move stick into P4.
Yeah, late lunge then up the inside, and actually, to be fair, no, it was Wood that went very late on the brakes there, very early on the brakes, should I say, and kind of gave the position up, which is strange to see. I wonder if there might be some sort of issue there. But Marti, she'll be loving that, looking in again in the rearview mirror, thinking, yeah, you guys crack on behind me, let me just drive away. I'm happy to take this podium if you guys don't want it. But as it stands, then it is still Visser in the lead. Marta Garcia then is in P2. We've then got Marti in 3rd. Powell 4th, Wood in 5th position with 4 minutes 40 seconds to go. And we go a little bit further down here. Again, Kimalainen, winner from race 2 last week in reverse grid, currently in P7. And then we have got Sidokova, who's managed to get up into P9. Bella Garcia here. Billy, I'm not too sure if you knew this fact. She's actually a pole vaulter as well.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. It just shows the level of athleticism, I guess, that most of these young girls will have as racing drivers. It's not as easy as sitting behind a steering wheel and with a couple of pedals. The G-forces, the strength training that will be required to handle these high performance cars. It's definitely takes that of an athlete, and I guess in that sense, her endurance, she may have an advantage at the end of this race if some of the other girls start to tire out from just from not being able to hold on to the wheel.
Absolutely love that. Yeah, I love the seriousness there you've given, Billy. Yeah, you're right. Endurance is going to be a thing. As much as these are short, sharp races, there's 3 of them. You've got to be on it in your mind. You've got to be on it physically as well. Again, the feedback that they get through the wheels and the pedals, are definitely straining for sure. You know, even I've got some blisters from sim racing, Billy. Again, I'm not going to complain too much about it. It's still a great hobby to be involved in. But yeah, back to pole vaulting. I tried a bit of pole vaulting once, but I couldn't find a pole that was strong enough. So yeah, couldn't really get into it. Maybe I was a potential world champion, but we will never ever know. But it is Visser that leads this race. Garcia 2.6 seconds behind now. So Visser finally got the job done effectively again. Just didn't get off the line very well. We saw she had the inside track and yeah, just didn't get the power down well. But I'll tell you what, she's getting the power down now very well indeed with 3 minutes remaining of this race. And you see a couple of back markers there having a pretty poor race, unfortunately. But again, they're having a poor race right now, Billy. But race number 2, it's going to give them a very good qualifying position.
Yeah, it is. A lot of these girls that are coming up as back markers now, they're going to be right in the frame for a good result in race 2. Whether that's tactical or not, whether it's just an incident on the first lap or during the race, we don't know. But yeah, they're going to be in the hot seat when it comes to the next race. They're going to be trying to hold off the likes of Marta Garcia, Pau, Visser, all these girls that will be coming from the back of the grid and trying to fight hard.
Absolutely. Here we go. Belen Garcia then trying to make a potential move on Kimmerleinen. Kimmerleinen there very late defensively. And actually, the jet wash there off the rear of the car has sent Belen Garcia off the circuit. So we're coming up towards the end of race number 1. And now this is where you need to really make the moves and shakes. And right now, it is actually Wood and Powell that are battling for P4 as it stands. And well, Wood has been getting better and better and better as this race has indeed progressed. Apart from that very early braking down in towards the hairpin in sector number 2 a couple of laps ago. Been pretty flawless, and again, of course, the start wasn't the strongest, but getting faster again. And I tell you, Wood's a dark horse. Really is a dark horse. Last week, I saw the improvement. I saw the 1 lap pace, and as the races indeed went on, she got faster and faster and faster. And I'm expecting the same again here today. Again, she'll start 5th last in race number 2, but again, she'll be ahead of all of the really quick drivers in front of her. Silikova last week was kind of the star of the show. No one had really seen much of Silikova, and was a real big shock to see how much pace she had. She's going to start, quite high up the grid in the middle of the pack. But then again, that's where all the incidents tends to happen, Billy.
Yeah, the mid pack is normally the carnage zone, where you normally get that sort of sandwich effect. The quick girls coming from the back trying to get past, and the girls at the front are maybe a little bit slower, trying to hold off the girls behind. And yeah, it's normally it'll be action packed, and yeah, Sedikova's right in the middle of that.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be an interesting one in race number 2. That is for certain. I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an absolute cracker. But Vista's not worried about race number 2 right now. She still leads this race 3.2 seconds as it stands with 40 seconds left on the clock. So I think we are just about going to start another lap here. So this will be the final lap of the race coming up. Come around the final few corners here. Here's Garcia then in 2nd position. Marta Garcia, again, announcing herself within this W Series Esports League today. You know, how's the fortunes going to change over the next couple of races? It's nice to see her at the front once again. Marty then is in P3. Powell in P4. Wood, again, half a second behind Powell. I think that might indeed sort itself out before the end of this race. I think we're going to see some pretty cool action. Maybe up into turn 1 as we look at Powell and Wood in P4 and P5. Visser, though, still leading out there by 3.8 seconds. It's going to take a monumental error for her to indeed lose this race. But yeah, dominant performance. A bit of a mistake at the start that maybe would have lit a fire underneath Visser to get things right. But she's done everything right since lap 1 year.
It just shows the level of competition and how competitive these girls are. That making a mistake off the line, she didn't lose her head. She kept her cool. She picked her way back through into the leader race, and I mean, this has been a real dominant performance from Visser here. Yeah, incredible pace that she seems to have over the other girls at the minute. Marta Garcia, I thought she may try and adjust some lines, maybe try and hang with her for a bit longer in the race, but P2, there's some good points on the board there, so if she can bring it home in P2, we'll be starting ahead of Visser for the race 2.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, still in race 1 here, it is Wood and Powell battling for that P4 as it stands. But then there's Belen Garcia and Kimmerleinen also battling for P7 as it stands. So a couple of really close battles still happening out on circuit. But again, it has been all about Beitske Visser here today. But here we go. Here's the Caitlin Wood and Powell battle. Let's hopefully look at this for the next 10-20 seconds, and then we will indeed get to our race leader, potential race winner. Well, can Caitlin Wood find that P4? Powell got ahead, ever the opportunist, and managed to hold on for the entirety of this race. In front of them then is Marty. Marty's actually closed up to the back of Garcia. 1.3 seconds then between those drivers here, but it's all about Beitske Visser. I think Visser is going to take her 3rd victory out of 4 races. We come around the final corner here, and well, apart from a little chink in the armor on turn number 1 or lap number 1, Beitske Visser will take the race victory here in round number 2, race number 1 at COTA. And it's been a very dominant display. But Billy, it's all about Visser. Visser has been dominant from last week, took the form into this week. She's the one to beat.
Yeah, she really is. I'm very impressed with that performance. When you make a mistake off the start, you lose a few places. It's easy to get frustrated, maybe lock up a wheel, trying to overtake and get those positions back. It was a flawless drive from after that mistake on lap 1. She picked him off at her own pace and then drove off into the distance. That's what, as a racing driver, you aim to do every race, and she's just gone out there and done it.
It is race number 2 then. It is here at COTA, and it is Piria on pole. We're about to go green then for race number 2. And here we go. It is Vicky Piria that leads the way here, but Tomaselli has actually not got the best of starts, to be fair. Look at this, it's almost 5 wide. Then in behind as they come up towards turn number 1, and very late on the brakes there is Tomaselli. Tomaselli trying to get up into the lead, and well, Piria runs off circuit. A little bit of carnage in the background here, but everyone gets through pretty damn nicely. 3 wide then as we're on board with Gosha Radess. Radess was incredible last week, just going under the radar, really. Again, didn't have any real standout performances, but indeed finds herself at the sharp end of this championship. Apiria, who didn't finish too well, obviously finishing in last position in race number 1, has got away here with a 0.6 of a second lead.
Yeah, it's a great start from Piria, holding the lead of the race. That's all she needed to do. And as this is all going on and the carnage is unfolding, I've seen Beitske Visser has just dropped down to 19th. She's dropped down to the back of the grid. So obviously some stuff unfolding at the back. We'll be interested to see how it all sort of ranks up after 1 lap. But here we go. He's up there 4 wide into the corner onto the back straight here. Ardest Agron spun. Vicky Piria is now caught up in it. It's all kicking off.
Radest has just done a dive bomb of all dive bombs there. It went 4 wide momentarily, and it looks like then she's been taken out of this race. And well, Visser, you said earlier, was a little bit far down the order, but now Marta Garcia, Piria are all down there as well. Pepper is down the back of the order, and all of a sudden now Tomaselli leads this race. Kimmerleinen, last week's race 2 winner, is up to P2 then. And again, the leaders are all still pretty damn close here. More than is in P4, and actually Abby Eaton up into P2 as well here. So Eaton's got the job done, and well, the front, the front 6, front 8, front 9, front 10 are all very close. Sivakova has been involved in an incident at the start of this race. All of the title protagonists are involved in what's going on right now. But Kimmerleinen is just taking the lead there with a little bit of a push to pass, I would say, on Moore now into P2. Hold on, what's happened to Tomaselli? Tomaselli is right down the order then, down into P14 all of a sudden. And well, it's anyone's guess who's going to be leading this race after a couple of corners, Billy.
Yeah, we can see here Sarah Moore's got a bit of front wing damage. I mean, I'm surprised there's not more people that we can see with physical damage with the cars, because that was action-packed, close racing, a few bits of contact, and look at us going up over the start-finish line, starting lap 2. But Naomi Schiff here, who's she did have some up the inside of her, but I think she had slight damage, so you lose a bit of straight-line performance with that on iRacing.
Well, Moore makes a late dive up the inside there, and actually Schiff goes up the inside of both of them. So, yeah, Schiff has just gained another couple of spots here. And at this point, Billy, it's put a load of names in a hat. Pick one out. Who's going to win this race?
Well, Alice Powell's up into the top 10. She's P9. A good first lap. Oh, we've got some side-by-side action in Sector 1. That's not normally where you'd see a pass. So the fact that they're side-by-side there shows how ballsy these girls are being and how aggressive their moves are.
Yeah, it's all about staying out of trouble, and well, Kimmerleinen showed us how to do it last week. She's showing us how to do it again here. 2.7 seconds in the lead then from Belen Garcia. So Belen Garcia is pole vaulted away from the back of the grid right up to the sharp end. Great to see then there's always a Garcia at the front by the looks of things, and this time it's Bellin. Hawkins then is in P3, and we've got Marty in P4. Moore then is in P5. Sidorkova up to P6. We're on board with her right now, and she is charging through the pack, although she is dragging along with her by the looks of things Cook and Powell. Visser, by the way, Billy, already back up into P9.
I mean, this race is just action-packed from the start. It's so hard to keep up with. 1 minute they're at the front, 1 minute they're at the back. So much action going on. We can see here going into one of the tightest corners on the track, you've got Sarah Moore, Sidorkova, Alice Powell, I think has just slotted through into P7. So yeah, all these quick girls. Visser was down at the back of the grid at one point, now she's back up into the top 10. More action everywhere.
Oh, Visser there involved in a bit of carnage as well, then tried to set one up the inside. It didn't quite work out, and it was actually, looks like Thomas Senny's trying to get back involved. Wood was involved there as well. Well, you say we don't advocate for action like this, that's for sure, but I tell you what, it makes it interesting. But Kymäläinen, by the way, is off. 7.7 seconds in the lead then for Kymäläinen. Marty then is in second spot, under a lot of pressure here from Hawkins. So Hawkins, again, a bit of an unsung hero, actually battling for second position. We've got Belen Garcia then, who was at the sharp head, right at the front, was in P2, has actually taken the option then to get a fast repair. Jessica Hawkins, though, P2. This is great stuff here. And wow, look at this then. Sidorkova is up to P3.
This is, yeah, action-packed. Sidorkova's done a great job navigating through that traffic up into P3. That's great. Kymäläinen, she's gone at nearly a 9-second lead at this point in the race. She, I can't see her doing anything without a huge mistake. She'll be, I think, winning this race.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of drivers are taking the option to take a fast repair. It was a bit of a carnage-filled lap number 1, that is for certain, and lap number 2. And one of them who hasn't is Bajtska Visser. So Visser has not taken the option to repair the car. Last week this happened at Monza. She was involved in an incident, lost a lot of lap time, but indeed got the decent finish. A fast repair, Billy, of course, it's going to get your car all in great nick, but you're still going to lose a hell of a lot of time coming through that pit lane.
Yeah, in a race that's only 15 minutes long on a track like COTA, where the lap time is just over 2 minutes, it costs you so much time that in sort of this situation, if you've got a bit of front wing damage, I think most of these drivers, I think Visser actually had, when I was on board with her earlier, and I think you can see her on the front left part of the wing there, she's actually got a slight bit of damage. But she's just fighting on through it. She's going to have to deal with the slight downside and loss in downforce, and she's going to just have to fight for every position.
Absolutely, you know, with 15-minute format here, you race with 3 wheels, in my opinion. You just get the job done and move on to race number 3. But someone who is getting the job done right now is Kymäläinen. We're on board here with Sarah Moore, though. Sarah Moore is behind Shift. Shift then is the reserve driver today. Well, putting in a very good shift, if I do not say so myself. I'm one for dad jokes, Billy, sorry. Had to get one in every single broadcast.
Yeah, I'm definitely a few years off that, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Kymäläinen then still leads 8.2 seconds, and well, the lead was over 9 seconds, so maybe Jessica Hawkins is going to reel that lead in. Sidorkova, though, is the danger right now. 0.7 of a second behind Hawkins, and well, trying to get that job done. Very impressive drive here once again. Again, the day did not start well here at all. Got to learn from that mistake in qualifying 1, going into race number 3 and try and rectify it. But again, not overly the quickest driver over a lap time, but indeed the consistency is there. And actually, in this race, there's not actually been a lap without a 1x here from Sidorkova, so she's pushing the boundaries, so that means that she has indeed gone across the track limits ever so slightly to get that 1x. But again, that just goes to show the determination, just goes to show how much that these drivers are pushing for these performances. But don't write off P4 right now, Alice Powell, only 0.9 of a second back. It's going to be hoping that Hawkins and Sidorkova start battling for P2, so she can then be the opportunity to take that position. But as it stands then, Billy, it's been carnage here for race number 2, around number 2. But Kymäläinen has taken full advantage again.
Yeah, she really has. I mean, she's obviously navigated her way through the traffic, staying out of trouble like you need to do in this sort of situation. And she's obviously managed to open up a lead as everyone was. I think there was about a 3/10 gap from first down to 10th between each driver. It was, I've never seen so many cars so close, and so like 4 wide at some corners. It was definitely a crazy start to the race. She's navigated it well. She's deserving of that lead. And I think unless she makes a huge mistake, she'll be bringing that home.
Absolutely. I think the biggest story here is actually that Visser is now up into P6, so not pitting for that damage to be fixed. Again, is paying off dividends here. But there's the move then for P2. Oh, that's a beautiful move there through the double left-hander. That is unbelievable. And unfortunately there for Hawkins just runs a little bit wide, but that is sensational.
Yeah, a great move. It's a very difficult braking zone there because you're turning whilst braking. It's so easy to lock a wheel. And I think we saw that there. She actually did slightly make a bit of a lock-up. So the fact she managed to make that move stick at 16 years of age, pulling off that sort of manoeuvre is something incredible, really.
Very reminiscent of a young Dutch driver called Max Verstappen around the circuit such as COTA. So yeah, it's great to see the parallels. But as it stands though, again, it's still Kymmelainen leading, losing a little bit of time every single lap, but with 7.5 seconds, you are going to take a little bit of time off your lap times. I don't think Sidorkova can, or even Visser, if she was in P2, will be able to rein that sort of amount of time in. But as it stands then, Hawkins, who was in P2, is now under pressure here from Alice Powell. Powell looking to get that podium, and I was speaking to DC last week about the importance, if you can't win the race, how important it is to just get onto that podium, Billy.
Yeah, points mean prizes. Alice will know the importance of race 2 for her in making up as many positions and opening up the distance between her and Visser. Visser's at P6, Alice in P4. She knows Visser is the girl to beat at the minute. She's on top form, and she needs to open up the gap by making up. If she can get through to second, that would be a great result for her.
For anyone in the people who've led the lap sweepstake, if you pick 27, congratulations, you are a winner. There have been so many lead changes in race number 2 because of all the carnage, but look at this then, the battle for the podium here. Alice Powell with a great drive there through the left-hander up over the crest here, and again, no slipstream. You can see that the car almost comes to a halt once they come out of that slipstream zone, and indeed they're on the same pace. And actually, to be fair, it looks like Hawkins is able to just get a slight toe from Sidorkova down towards the hairpin here, and well, can the job be done? And Powell has run out wide here, and actually still gets the job done. It looks like Hawkins made a terrible error there running wide.
Yeah, she definitely did. I mean, being on the outside of someone like Alice is always going to commit in the braking zone. Last of late breakers, as you might say, and when you're on the outside, it sort of, you lose vision of the apex. It all becomes a bit tricky not to outbrake yourself, and that's what she looks like she's done right there.
Yeah, the realism of the brakes within iRacing is, you know, you kind of get to around about 40%, and that's when you're in the lock-up zone. So you have to be so careful on the brakes. You've got to feather the brakes. It's all good with the loud pedal. You can just press that down as hard as you want. But yeah, braking is so tough here. Alice Powell, though, up into that podium position here. Sidorkova, again, well, actually closed the gap 6.7 seconds as it stands right now then. Again, not close enough, I don't think, with 4 minutes left on the clock here. I think Kymmelainen is potentially going to take a second victory. So that means we'd still only have 2 winners in this championship as it stands. And Kymmelainen, well, we saw the interview with Lee, and she was so shocked about getting that result. And, well, just going to prove here that she's here to party. She's here to win, potentially, this Esports League. Yeah,
she really is. And, I mean, race 2 is a tactical thing in terms of setting yourself up with a grid. If you're having a difficult race 1, race 2 is definitely an opportunity for these drivers to claw back points, and she's not failed to use that opportunity to the best advantage for herself. I mean, potentially looking at 2 wins from 2 reverse grid races, that's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, ultimately, it's very difficult to get the triple crown, as I'm going to call it from now on. If to get 3 race wins in this format each week is going to be nigh on impossible. Although Visser is giving it a bloody good go right now in P6 as it stands, 2.1 seconds behind Schiff. Then Schiff has had a great race here again, a replacement this week, and doing a very stellar job as it stands. But yeah, Visser. We talk about race 2, how key it is just to try and maximise your points here. And with Visser, of course, getting 2 race wins last week and a race win today, a P6 is huge for that standings total.
Yeah, when you're starting 19th on the grid in a 15-minute race, whether it's in sim or real life, I think aiming inside the top 8 is sort of, that would be ambitious in itself. So the fact that she sat there in P6 now, and it looks like at the front of the grid, the gaps are starting to open out now, sort of people's pace is sort of leveling out. I think a lot of these girls as well, especially like the likes of Alice Powell and Visser that have come through from the back, they know that they're in a good position to bag a lot of points, so they won't be trying anything stupid in terms of overtaking. I think that all happens on the early laps when they're trying to make up the significant progress.
Absolutely. Well, there's still action happening all over the circuit here, and actually we just had a spinner at the back there, which was Tasman Pepper, unfortunately, and nearly a little bit of contact there. But it's Kymmelainen. It's only 4.4 seconds now, Billy, actually. So all of a sudden, what's your heart going through here? So there's clearly been a big mistake here, and taking your foot off the pedal, for the lack of a better term, can breed mistakes. Would that be right in saying?
It's always hard having such a lead, because it's so easy to get complacent and to sort of take your mind off of what you're doing for a second. Next thing you know, you've outbraked yourself by 5 meters and you're in the runoff, and then things get a bit trickier. But from my eyes, from the gap's been coming down by sort of a second over sort of the last few laps, I'd say she's just really like easing off and bringing the thing home. She knows that the gap that she's got significant. I wouldn't say that she's feeling the pressure at 4.5 seconds with only a minute on the clock. Yeah, it would really shock me to see any huge mistakes coming from Kymmelainen here.
Billy, it's your first time in the commentary box, and now it's almost guaranteed that Kymmelainen is going to make a mistake. So congratulations, you might have your first commentator's curse on the cards, but it is still it is still 4 seconds though. You might be safe here, but again, it's Sidorkova behind. We know how quick she can be. Powell, by the way, have not been dropped here by Sidorkova. So again, it's only 1 second between second and third here, and Powell potentially looking for a P2.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, P2 after the gap that Kymmelainen opened up, that was looking like that'd be the maximum from anyone that's trying to make up positions. She's in P3, it's just over a second at the minute. If she can get another few temps sort of down to the 6th, 7th, 10th mark, then I think she'll be looking at being in the sort of toe range and feeling the effect of that down the straights. But at the minute, it looks just the gap's a bit too big.
Yeah, Kymmelainen has been dominant from start to finish here. 3.4 second lead as we come up towards the second of the 2 last left-handers. And I think this is all but done here. 1 more corner to go. And Emma Kymmelainen, after winning race number 2 last week at Monza, it's looking like it's going to be another race victory here then for Kymmelainen. And maximum points here for race 2, round number 2.
Yeah, it's a great result for Kymmelainen, being 2 times the reverse grid winner over the first 2 events. Yeah, that's an awesome job from her.
Well, actually, looks like they may have just cut the timing beam as it transitions. So this is the final lap of the race. We get an extra lap here, Billy, and actually, it might be the commentator's curse coming home here, because it's now 2.7 seconds. So we might see a battle for the lead. And, well, Powell's being dragged along here by Sidorkova. So just to give you, ladies and gentlemen watching at home, a little bit of insight, once they cross the line at 0, they get another lap. So that was too close to the 0 for it to be counted as the last lap. So this is now the white flag. So sometimes that happens within iRacing. That's just the way it is. It even caught me out, and I've got experience for years within the game here. But it just gives us an extra lap here as it stands. But it's 2.7 seconds. Again, it's just going to take 1 small mistake here, and potentially Kymmelainen could lose this lead. Visser, again, about 2.8 seconds off of shift now in P6 as they come down the big long straight here. Kymmelainen, again, 2.2 seconds. Billy, that lead is coming down.
Don't say that. I can't give a commentator's curse first race. Surely not. Maybe that was why Emma Kymmelainen was slowing down a little bit to reduce the lead, trying to get over the line so she didn't have to do an extra lap. You never know. I highly doubt that she's thinking that far ahead, but 2 seconds is still a significant lead, surely.
I speak about that all the time. In league races that I cast, I speak about it all the time. When a driver crosses the line, when they've got a 10-second lead and they cross the line with 2 seconds left on the clock, it would make sense to slow down so you don't do that extra lap so you've got less time to make a mistake. So, yeah, that could be a genuine fact here, but we're still seeing the time come down. But as it stands, I don't think it's going to be enough. So, well, this race has been so good, I get to call the race winner twice. Emma Kymmelainen then, winner from race number 2, round 1. And, well, here at COTA, it's race 2, the reverse grid, and winner here at race number 2. Emma Kymmelainen. Sidorkova has, well, got a huge result here in P2. It is then Alice Powell on that podium. But it is, again, same as last week, reverse grid. Emma Kymmelainen goes out and takes the win.
Well, 2 great races, and in fact, if we saw a replay of last week, I'd be sitting here telling you that Beitske Visser won the first race and Emma Kymmelainen won the second race. And apart from a few points differences, that's exactly what we've got going again this week. 79 points for Visser. Sidorkova, another great run of races. She's been having 71 points. Kymmelainen, 52. She's moved up from 6th to 3rd. Alice Powell, we'll talk to Billy about her in just a moment. 50 points. She'll be delighted to have moved up to 4th position. Nerea Marti, 46. Gosha Rades, 43. And then you can see the other protagonists. It was a great first race. We'll start off with race 1 before we get to wacky races. Billy, you touched upon it. Vajska to make that mistake off the line, but then to be so composed to be able to just eke yourself back in, that was really impressive.
Yeah, it was super impressive. I mean, after making a mistake from pole position, it's so easy to get flustered and to start thinking about, start thinking about the mistake and stop focusing on what you're doing corner to corner. But she really sort of came into her own element, picked off the 2 girls in front of her, out into the lead and stretched that gap the whole race. So it was, a mighty performance from her.
And look, incredible at the end of race 1 to have 3 drivers going for 3rd position, basically all in a row on the line, and that went to Alice Powell, but some great battles.
Yeah, great battles all over the circuit, even some that, there's so many happening at the same time that we missed some on camera as well, which you can see from the relative. And it just goes to show that a little bit more experience, a little bit more time in the simulator rig, because this is like racing in a different formula for real life drivers, if you like. So it's like going from perhaps touring cars into the W Series or vice versa. It's a whole different environment, and to see them just getting a little bit more experience, a little bit more time in the seat, bums in seats as we like to call it, and we're starting to see the progression, start seeing the pace, start to see them be a little bit closer.
So race 1 eased us all back in. Race 2 was like wacky races. I can honestly say that whilst we loved it, the W Series racing director, Dave Ryan, was probably sitting, rocking back and forth, thinking if this happens in his cars, all hell will break loose. Billy, I thought your prediction of Alice Powell going from, what was it, 17th to possibly win the race, I thought at the time, whoa, that's bold. I mean, I know that you two are really close, but my goodness, what do I know? She stormed through the field.
Yeah, I mean, I just know Alice's fighting spirit. I know how aggressive and ruthless she is with her overtaking, and I could just see that amongst the carnage that was unfolded in front of us, that if anyone was going to be able to pick their way through it and time it right, I thought she'd be the person to do it. And I mean, she went on to finish on the podium, so she's had 2 podiums in 2 races at the round 2 here, so she's doing a good job climbing the leaderboard.
And look, the start of lap 2 looked almost exactly like the start of lap 1 in that there were, say, 5 cars abreast. We know all about track limits at COTA. If you're a Formula 1 fan, then just never mention track limits at COTA to Max Verstappen, because he lost his podium position for that. But my goodness, they were making the most of it. I mean, good job. There's a lot of runoff there.
They took what we like to call the IndyCar line a few times today. But indeed, if they're going to go 5 wide, they're going to have to go off the circuit somewhere. Again, it's just opportunistic driving from a lot of drivers. And again, it did create a little bit of carnage. But us watching at home, us people watching the broadcast, they're not going to mind too much. Any action's good action, right?
Exactly. Billy, last week, Emma Kymäläinen went from P1 to likes to frag victory, essentially. But she had a lot more to do today, 13th to 1st, and she really earned that one.
Yeah, she really did. I mean, the first few laps where people were jumping up and down the order, girls were crashing out everywhere, and there was just pure wacky races carnage. I kind of lost Kymäläinen in the first couple of laps of where she was, and then all of a sudden she popped up in the lead, 6 or 7 second gap that went up to 9, and then slowly throughout the race that she got closed up on. But when you've got a 9-second lead in a 15-minute sprint race, it's just so easy to just monitor the pace, be a second off the pace, no risks, no outbreaking yourself and losing 2 or 3 seconds in a mistake. She really drove that race as best as she could. 13th to victory is an impressive performance.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, somebody who got caught up in the carnage at the start with Gosia Radest. She is always a pleasure to interview. We'll be talking to her in just a moment, but first she can give us a tour around her home in Poland.
2018 was very special for me. It was first year for me in GT. I was competing in GT4 European Series. We had the win at Hungaroring, also at Nürburgring. I was P3 in Misano. In addition to the racing, I am also hosting a TV show in Poland. I'm co-host there. We're showing premieres of the new cars, but my favorite segment is when I'm driving a normal road car but on a racetrack. It's so special because we're inviting guests that are Polish popular people, stars, actors, singers, and I'm giving them a drive.
Śpi dobrze.
As my parents were quite busy people and they were working like almost all of the time, so the person who was sitting with me at home was my great-grandmother. She's now 100 years old.
Czy jesteś ze mnie dumna i jak bardzo?
Jestem bardzo, bardzo dumna z ciebie.
Tak?
Tak.
I cieszysz się?
Cieszę się i kocham cię za to na życie.
Piąteczka.
Well, Gosha, great to see you. It's always really nice to chat to you, but I think it's been a crazy last race for you, certainly, hasn't it?
Yes, it was. So in comparison to what we had in Monza, now like plenty of things were happening, quite a few contacts and a bit not enough luck at qualifying as I had some track limits not respected, and yes, ended up how it ended up, but still great fun. Really happy to race against girls, at least on the virtual track.
Yeah, and track limits is always a big story at the Circuit of the Americas. It doesn't matter what series you're racing in. But to go from Monza to COTA, they're very different racetracks anyway. How much can you change the setup of the sim and change things for your own driving?
So actually we changed the setup. We started on a baseline setup when we were just preparing and we were having our first sessions on the track, but then it turns out that the setup is barely drivable, so we needed to adapt it more. The car was extremely understeery, which is nothing good, especially in the first section of S's. So yeah, the new setup that was actually done mostly by Bajtske, who is having the most experience on the simulators, it's working here really good.
So you're all helping each other?
Yes, definitely. Especially you could see it before the first race when there was a lot of setting up the simulator itself, the iRacing, also some base setup for the Logitech pedals and steering wheel. So that was challenging for everyone, but everyone helped each other, which I think it's really great.
Best of luck for race 3. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.
So guys, race 3 coming up. Last week it went to Bajtske. Any bold predictions from you both? Billy, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't think it's that bold of a prediction to say I think Vis is going to win this one again. I mean, she's been dominant in this series so far. The fact that she won race 1 and she was qualified on pole by 4 tenths, I don't see really anyone making drastic improvements throughout the 3 races so far, the 2 races we've seen, to warrant them being able to challenge her. I think she have learned from her mistake as well at the start. So yeah, my money's on Vissa.
Luke, come on, give us a different name.
I'm going to go for 2. I think Sidakova is going to get the first win of the season for a different driver other than Kymäläinen and indeed Vissa. But I think Caitlin Wood might be the one to watch out for. I think it's all going to go right for her this race.
Yeah, absolutely. She's been qualifying really, really well. It's just not quite come together from a racing point of view, but we'll look forward to seeing that. Let's just remind us where we are, though, in terms of the tracks that we'll be visiting over the next 8 weeks. We've ticked off a couple of crackers, and we have got so many more to come. Brands Hatch is next week, and then the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pace or Interlagos, Spa, Watkins Glen, another wonderful roller coaster of a track in the States, Suzuka, Mount Panorama or Bathurst, the Nordschleife, and then Silverstone. My goodness, there's so much to get your teeth into in that one. And just to remind you, we've got one more race to come for you tonight. It is another full points race, 3 every week. And as you can see, there are points from 1st to 16th and including points for the fastest lap as well. Okay, qualifying is getting underway for race 3. I'll hand you back to Luke and Billy.
Thank you, Lee. Race 3, round 2 then of the W Series Esports League. We're in qualification right now. We're at COTA, a very, very long circuit. Built in 2011, 20 turns, 3.4 miles long. We're on board then with Kymäläinen as we come up towards that double left-hander where Sidakova made that unbelievable move then earlier in race number 2. Kymäläinen then coming up towards the final sector here, and will be one of the first times to be posted here. And this was actually officially going to be on the calendar this year. It's going to be on the undercard for Formula 1, but officially it's going to be on the undercard next year at COTA in 2011. We're not. No, it's not 2011. 2021. I wish it was 2011. Oh God, do I ever wish it was 2011? So that's a huge, huge opportunity for the W Series, Billy.
Yeah, being on the support package of Formula 1 with all the spectators, the fans, Obviously, taking it out to America, that's a great audience for these girls and a great platform for the girls to be involved with. Seeing the best of the best out there and then being on track with them. I can't think of any better spot for this series and W Series itself to be in after only a year's running as well. It's amazing.
Yeah, it just goes to show the growth in the sport, the traction that the sport is indeed gaining as well to get that kind of recognition. And it's just going to go from strength to strength. But we're here for the Esports League today. This is the final race of our round number 2 here at COTA. And you may be wondering, well, I'm seeing times being posted there, but I can't see any cars. Well, they are actually individually on track right now, so they're on the same track, but they're not able to see each other, so they can't mess with each other's laps. If anyone makes a spin, there'll be no yellow flags, etc., etc. So it's basically they just get that maximum opportunity to get those lap times in. And well, it is Pepper who is on provisional pole right now, 205.3. That's 9/10 of a second slower than what we saw from our first qualifying session earlier today. And Visser, I don't know what's happened here, but the confidence level might have dropped after race number 2, because only in P3, Billy.
Yeah, I mean, the times are still a long way off what we've seen, especially in qualifying 1. So I'd expect over the course of this 10-minute qualifying session for the times to drop. But yeah, at the minute, she's not got that nice banker lap that she managed to pull out in qualifying 1, where she pulled out a great lap early on in the session. And from then on, she didn't even have to really attempt to go again. She was more just monitoring the pace, maybe taking a few more risks. Maybe they didn't pay off. But now she's got to pull it all out of the bag with only 3 minutes left on the clock.
Absolutely here. And well, another driver that has to do that as well is Sidorkova. Didn't get a lap time in qualifying 1. Will she get a lap time in this time here? The only driver not to get a lap time, well, will she get a lap time? P3. So up the sharp end of the grid order and actually ahead of her Esports League title challenger, because Visser is in P4. Expected Visser to go a lot faster. I'm sure it's going to be happening here, but only 3 minutes left to go. Not long to go here at all. Marta Garcia, who was momentarily leading the race earlier today, up into P5. Then we've got Alice Powell, your mate, your friend, up into P6. We got Marty then in P7, Moore in P8. Abby Eaton is in P9, a new driver for this for the W Series. Not had the best of runs so far today, only finishing 16th and 11th, but qualified top 10. And Abby Eaton with a real opportunity here to announce herself in this championship.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for her. Obviously, she's new to the championship in general. Although these aren't the actual W Series cars that we run out on track, it's still a challenge learning sim racing, adapting to this car in particular. And she's obviously a little bit behind the ball with these girls having a year's actual race experience under their belts as well, or a lot of them anyway. So yeah, she's definitely doing a good job here being inside the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely spot on there. Pepper, again, still on pole. I think Pepper might get this, you know. We really did not put Pepper as one of the top qualifying drivers from our predictions. Just goes to show why we've been employed then. Wood then is in P2, and then we've got Sidorkova and Visser in P3 and 4. But again, Caitlin Wood, bit of a qualifying specialist. Is this going to be the race? Can she indeed give me some sort of credibility in my predictions?
I'm just amazed at how close it is, particularly from P4 to P6. This Garcia, Powell, Visser, all within about 0.04 of a second, which is it's crazy to see that much competition and how close these girls are. Like I say, the lap times we saw earlier were better, but I mean they have spent a fair while on these sims now. This is where they're sort of being slightly tired and the mental awareness may be starting to fade. As we see Visser just go P1, dipping into 204s. I think it was only a matter of time until we saw that, really.
Will Visser have learned from race number 1? Of course, did get the race victory, but the start wasn't the greatest, Billy.
Yeah, it's definitely an area, probably the only area really of her race in her performance in race 1 that she actually needed to improve. I mean, after she came out of the first corner in P3, she made a perfect race from then on, picking up the opposition, getting into the lead. All she's got to do now is make things a little bit easier for herself and try and stay in the lead the whole time.
Yeah, it's great for us watching, you know, a couple of overtakes to take the victory, but ultimately a racing driver will happily take leading from the start to the final checkered flag. So yeah, just learn from your mistakes, make sure you hold that inside line and, well, ultimately get off the line, because the braking was great. The apex at turn 1 was brilliant, but just unfortunately have been passed by 2 drivers already up in towards turn number 1. Another good qualifying from Wood, though. I'm expecting big things. This could be the day that we could potentially see all of that qualifying potential get into a really good race result.
Yeah, like I say, qualifying is one thing, the race is another. At the minute, like you say, Wood's not quite put a whole qualifying and race together and got the result that she probably on pace deserves. But yeah, the race is going to get underway, and we're going to see. Hopefully, she can prove us wrong.
Yeah, they are all indeed gridding now, ready for race number 3. And well, we are indeed green here. And well, Visser has got the start that she wanted here. It's almost 3 wide though for P3 in behind them. And it is Tasmin Pepper who is in to P2 here. P3, I believe it's Sidorkova already. So Sidorkova now actually down to P4, runs a little bit wide there. But it is Visser who does get a good start. Look at this, up the inside, then it's Wood. Wood trying to take P4, and I think Wood's got the job done. So Sidorkova went up to P3 momentarily from P5, and now back into P5. So nothing lost, nothing gained. But it is Visser then. Visser leads the way by half a second to Tasmin Pepper. And Marty, unsung hero over the last 2 weeks. Not got the absolute standout result here, but in a very strong podium spot already.
Yeah, she's doing a great job. She has, like you say, gone under the radar a bit. But yeah, being in P3, she's very close, only 6 tenths behind Pepper. She's just like I say, got to stay in that sort of 6th, 7th, 10th window, because that's where you'll see the effect of following and getting the extra performance in a straight line from a slipstream.
I don't think anyone's told Kim Alainen that there isn't a reverse grid race after this, because she's just dropped down from 6th to looks like P18. Looks like Piria's just dropping down as well. Vulvend's dropping down, so maybe a little bit of contact happening there. Front 6 though, separated by very little then as we head down in towards the hairpin here. And Wood actually making a move here for P3. And Wood again has dropped the position off of the start here. Started P3 and already down into P4. So the race starts not going as well as she might have expected. Well, not expected or wanted for the better term there for sure. But you can see Sidorkova then is in behind Wood, and well, there's a move up the inside, and we've seen it twice. That's going to be Sidorkova corner, but actually it makes a mistake there, runs out a little bit far too wide. They've got it nailed in race number 1, not so much in race number 3.
Yeah, that move we saw in race 1 was inch perfect. She had a slight lock up on the inside front going into that tight left-hander, whether it's a tricky braking zone. But there, I think that was just a bit too ambitious. It's the first lap of the race, you know, she can see Visser's in the lead, she wants to make the progress up, but a little bit too much too soon. And looks like we got a bit of a spinner there. I think that might have been
Pepper.
Oh, it's Pepper.
Yeah, Pepper spun from P2 there, so that's given Visser an opportunity to indeed drive away. Now 2 seconds is the advantage with the other 3 drivers in behind them, all battling for P2 as it stands then. And Wood just seems to be struggling with apexes and really braking late here. You can see Wood's the one that's braking the earliest out of everybody here, and that's what says to me there's a lot more potential for Wood going further in this esports league. I think we're going to see Wood take a few race victories once she really gets the knack of the car.
Yeah, I mean, this circuit's got a bit of everything. It's got some late braking zones, especially at the end of the back straight after turn 12. You've got this first sector, which is high commitment. You've really got to get into a good rhythm. So it tests the drivers in lots of different areas. But a circuit like Monza, at the first round is more high commitment, late braking. So as we go through the calendar, some circuits are going to favour the driving styles of the different drivers, and I'm excited to see how these girls adapt to that over the course of the league.
Yeah, also we were going to see some circuits where they've raced before as well from last season. So that's going to be very, very interesting. Of course, COTA, this is the first time some of these drivers would have ever had an opportunity to race around. It's such a new circuit anyway. That's the same for any driver in the world of motorsports. But Visser is taking full advantage here, again, leading out by a huge margin. And we're actually on board with Redesta. Redesta looking to try and make a move here for P10 as they come down in towards the hairpin. And is the job going to get done? It's Eaton then. And well, it is going to be Redesta up into P10 then. She is going to get the job done. Eaton moves down the order then. Abby Eaton, unfortunately, only got a 16th and an 11th so far today. And a new driver to the championship. We want to try and get a big result as soon as possible. Tomaselli, P9 as it stands. Again, a new driver is Bruna Tomaselli. And Belen Garcia, another new driver, unfortunately down in P17. So not ideal. But the best of the new drivers is Sidorkova, again, currently in P4, just in behind Caitlin Wood. And then we've got Neria Martin. She's actually a new driver as well in P2. So those two have had a lot of camera time over the course of the first 2 weeks of this championship. And the one who hasn't had a lot of camera time is Bajtska Visser, who leads the race. And you don't tend to get much camera time when you lead races, especially by the margins that Visser has been able to produce.
Yeah, she's in a race of her own up front. She's really, just like we said, after race 1, the only mistake she made was off the start. And then we can see now she had a clean start, and we've still got 15 minutes. We've still got pretty much the full race distance of race 1 to go, and she's opened up a 2.9 second lead. So yeah, she's up the road.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether Wood can get past Marty here. Of course, Wood showed great qualifying pace, 1 lap pace, and you'd think it'd be easy to indeed transition that into race pace, but it's not. It's all about rhythm. You know, you're absolutely on the limit when it comes to qualifying, especially within sim racing, because if you do bin it, Billy, you can just go get a new car, and in the race you get a new car again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in real life, you're obviously a little bit worried about damaging the car, and the damage has a bit more effect than in sim racing, where, like you say, you can make use of that fast repair in the race and get back out there. There's an element of, there's a bit of lack of caution, I'd say, in sim racing sometimes, because girls, they just want to go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And why not? Why not? This is, you know, again, such a unique opportunity for these ladies to. Oh dear, that looks like there's a front left suspension damage then to Sarah Moore's car, currently in P8, and yeah, that doesn't look good at all. Very slowly indeed. You see then, indeed, the closing speed from Thomas Elling in behind, and actually in behind them, you can see we've got Abby Eaton again battling with Redest. So Redest then trying to hold on to P10. Eaton trying to make a move up the inside. Not quite going to work out then for the Grand Tour stunt driver. So there's action again, like we said earlier, Billy. You know, we may not catch all the action on camera because it's like there's like 4 or 5 different groups happening across the circuit at the very same time.
Yeah, we can see it's not just at the front where they're making this move into this tight left-hander with tricky braking. The moves are happening all throughout the grid there. These girls, it doesn't matter what position they're fighting for, if it's P1 or like 15, 16, wherever they are on the grid, they're fighting for their position and they're fighting hard, which is exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, looks like Marta Garcia may have just got the job done then on Thomas Ellie, and Thomas Ellie is actually now into P8, so not ideal then. I don't know, I'm not too sure who it was. Was it Agron maybe, who's lost the damage to the car? Was it Moore? It might be Moore, actually, as we look at the timing screens there. But Wood's actually looking to make a move here, potentially, to P2 as we stand. Very, very close indeed. Visser leads by 4 seconds now. Half a second then between Wood and indeed Marty. Silikova in P4. Pepper is in P5. Marta Garcia then is in P6. And you look at those top 6, it's kind of the usual suspects, Billy.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Wood is in a great position here. Being only 3.5 temps through that first sector, it'd be very tricky to follow because it's high speed, you lose downforce. So the fact that she's now about 2.5 temps off, coming out of turn 12 onto the back straight here, into the biggest braking zone and a high speed straight, this is the prime opportunity for her to make a pass. And you can see there's a bit of weaving going on for Marty here. She knows that Wood's got a very good slipstream, so it's going to be interesting to see how she decides to defend into turn 13 here.
Yeah, Silikova's having none of it. I think she's waiting for a potential mistake from these two drivers here. She didn't want to get in the slipstream. Late on the brakes then as we come in through the left-hander. And we saw in the previous race, of course, it was a reverse grid. A lot of people taking, it's a bit of contact there, actually. And, well, there we go. From P2, then, it is Marty down into P4. And, actually, it's going to drop down into P5, just about getting herself sorted here. And, well, Silikova, I said, was waiting for a mistake to happen, waiting for a bit of contact. It duly has happened. And, well, will Wood have any damage there? And, well, will Wood actually be under investigation for that? I think it might have been, just from glancing at it once, I think it might have been more of a, not a brake check, but just a little bit too early on the brakes, or not early enough on the power, and that's created the contact. But Wood looks okay right now. Silikova up into the podium spots, but the one person that's not going to bother here, Billy, is Visser. Visser leads by 3.4 seconds as we head then to the last 12 minutes of race number 3.
Yeah, she is truly, like I say, she's at this point here, she's probably managing her pace. You can see them battling behind her, and all that's doing is them battling behind her. It's just costing them lap time and giving her an advantage. But obviously they're not going to not fight for position. These girls aren't wired up like that as a racing driver. You go for every gap, and tactically you don't think about things like that too far ahead. So they are just focusing on making the move stick. If it costs them a bit of time, so what? And like we see with that move there from Marty and Wood, with Marty spinning, obviously they're not afraid to get involved and get stuck in properly.
Yeah, we're on board here with Redest then. Redest very late on the brakes there. Is going to run out a little bit wide. Actually, no, holds on pretty damn nicely here and holds on to P10. Shift then is the next driver up for her. But they've got Agron and Volven just in behind them as well. Here's the battle for a top 10. Again, top 15 do indeed score points, but the higher you finish up the order, the more points you get. And as Billy says, points mean prizes.
They do indeed.
That's going to be a meme now all over Twitter next week. Just a picture of your face smiling like the Milky Bar kid with points. mean prizes. Through the double left-hander, sorry, no, wrong part of the circuit, my mistake there. We're still on board with Rodest as we come up the hill, then out sector number 1. And now we come down in towards the first part of the old slipstream city. And you see that...
Sorry to interrupt you there, mate, but it's a very tactical part of the track. It's interesting to see Rodest is defending into probably the corner leading onto the longest straight. Not maybe an ideal line and an exit she's going to get from that. And we can see with Agrin now, she's pulling up alongside. I think she might be trying to go around the outside into the braking zone here. Very aggressive manoeuvre.
Yeah, but it looks like she may have damage to that car. Yeah, you can see the front left of Agrin's front wing is all bent out of shape. But you can see here, just got to try and hold the inside line. This is what we saw the incident between the P2 and P3 earlier on in the race. And actually there's a spin. Oh, and oh dear, that's not good at all. Rodest then does indeed spin the car. And I think she might have just taken Volvend as well with her. Not ideal at all. But Agrin then is going to hold on to that P10. Runs a little bit wide there. And, well, you can see that front wing is really causing a lack of downforce around these corners.
Yeah, it's amazing to see her making moves and getting stuck in with the damage she's got. Normally on sim racing like that, as soon as you get some damage, like I say, to the front wing, the amount of performance you lose, I'd expect you to go backwards. But the fact that she's still fighting for every position is the sort of attitude that is going to get her hopefully a few more championship points on the board.
Do you think that's what's caused that incident, though? Having to take it a bit more easier through the corners, of course, not being able to glide through the corners, you know, lack of downforce, and the cars behind them have checked up, not quite, maybe a little bit too much of checking up, and obviously Volvend's getting involved there as well. Yeah,
obviously the exit there was compromised with Agrin going around the outside and then fighting for position, and she's got the front wing damage. So coming up from behind as Volvend was, it's kind of difficult to judge where they're going to brake, how much speed they're going to roll through the corner, and it's easy just to make a slight mistake, probably like we saw then, lock up, make contact with the rear of the car in front, and next thing you know, you're spinning round, and that's your race done. So there's still 8 minutes to go, so there's no need to we're kind of getting to the point now where people are going to make some more ambitious moves as they go for them last few positions.
Yeah, we say that there might be a little bit more placid through the first couple of races as well. We saw in race 2 that just isn't the case. But you're right. But on the flip side, these all know they've got a full week before they get to race again. So it's kind of like, yeah, I want to take as many chances as possible here, try and get as many points as possible. We're on board then with Schiff, who I believe is having a battle here with Abby Eaton. Abby Eaton there on the left-hand side of your screen. We've got the yellow car there on the inside then of Schiff. Again, a reserve driver today. Pulls across there to stop Abby from being able to accelerate through the corner. And that is very clever, very dangerous. And, well, not dangerous, let's just say, but using your racer's mind to the full, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, they're fighting for every position, and they're getting quite aggressive with their defending and how they're positioning the car. But as long as it's all within the rules and they're not darting side to side and driving in a ridiculous manner, I don't see anything wrong with that. That's part of the challenge of being in the front of someone, is learning how to defend properly and protect your position, and that's exactly what we're seeing here from Schiff.
Yeah, absolutely, forcing Abby to indeed get on the brakes a little bit earlier than she might have anticipated, and obviously ruining the exit of the next corner, which is all about, you know, that's what you've got to do. You've got to affect the other drivers around you. To make an overtake, you've got to affect them. You've got to try and get into their mirrors. You've got to try and get to their heads. And again, if you're trying to defend for a position, you also have to change the way that they think about corners as well. Get them thinking about what they're doing opposed to how they're going to move forward in the race. It's very, very clever there from Schiff, but the cleverest driver on the grid right now is Visser. Visser is absolutely dominating right now. Silikova, by the way, was just over a second behind in P3. Now close that gap.
Yeah, it's good to see that she's coming back now towards the end of this race. She's getting into that sort of range where she's going to benefit in a straight line from the slipstream. And seeing how she progressed in the reverse grid race and how composed she's been in the first sort of 5 races of this series so far, I wouldn't be too comfortable if I was in P2 myself.
No, absolutely not. And we saw some incredible moves at Monza. We saw indeed in race number 2 and indeed race number 1 that she is very good at finding the space, finding the opportunities to make overtakes here. Again, takes a completely different line for that double left-hander. She seems to be able to find an extra couple of tenths than any other driver here. But the big shame for her right now is that she is second in this Esports League standings. But the leader right now, is leading this race by quite the considerable margin. A country mile, as we call it over here. And yes, as much as Sidorkova would love to come second, it's still not going to be enough to close that, the Esports League standings by the end of this race.
Yeah, I think at the minute, the situation, the performances that Visser has been putting in, the fact she won the first race and had a good, strong reverse grid race as well, it's damage limitation in this situation. Sometimes on the day, someone's going to perform better than you, and you've got to just make the most of your opportunity rather than worrying about losing points to them and doing something stupid. It would be silly for Sedakova to go for a move for second and end up crashing out and giving up her many more points than she needs to. She's just got to drive her own race. If she can get through to second, that'd be great. P3 is also a good result, and yeah, that's all she can do.
Tomaselli then now up ahead here by the looks of things of Abby Eaton. Eaton actually up into P9 here, so all of that argy-bargy earlier on is promoted them up a couple of positions. Tomaselli then looking to try and make the overtake of Schiff. And actually, we've dropped a couple of drivers here. Well, Alice Powell's dropped down into P12 here. So, well, that is going to be nobody home here. And actually, no, hits the apex nearly. Yeah, there was nobody home, you're right, first time there. I'm arguing with myself here, Billy, as they come around turn number 1 with 4 minutes to go. But if we're going to talk long-term in this esports series, you look at championships such as Formula One, it's so much harder for teams like Mercedes, who are right at the top of the order, to find that extra second. But it's easier to improve if you're behind, right? There's like a glass ceiling when you're at the top, whereas all of the not slower drivers, but drivers behind Visser have got somebody to chase. Yeah, definitely. Being the one who's being chased, it's always harder to then go out there and find that time by yourself, to find those extra few attempts to protect yourself, because all these girls are going to be improving as we go through the series. They're all going to be getting more experience, one on the simulator, learning their racecraft, improving that side of things. Oh, we've seen an incident there on the back straight. That was a bit peculiar. Yeah, it looks like Abby has just kind of been in the slipstream there of Tomaselli and just drove into the back of her, which is not ideal, and then just spun off. So, yeah, a loss of downforce completely there, and maybe tried to pull out a little bit too late to make the overtake and just tagged the rear of the car. Not ideal, that's for sure. Sidakova on board with right now, 1.2 seconds behind Wood. So Caitlin Wood, this is looking like it's going to be that performance that we're looking for. The qualifying's been there, every single qualifying session in the last 4 races where we have had qualifying, but the race pace hasn't. And well, today, showing that definitely Wood is the one to look out for moving forward. And as it stands, Visser and Sidakova have been the 2 drivers, in terms of race performance, in terms of getting the points to indeed watch out for. Wood via qualifying. Are we looking right here at the best 3 drivers in the championship as we stand? Well, we're definitely looking at the best 3 drivers right now at round 2, I'd say. Definitely, and race 3 is probably the best race to show that, with it having gained experience from the race 1 and race 2, obviously experience in the reverse grid. Visser, like you say, she made her amends for her mistake she made in race 1, where she lost the lead off the start. And yeah, I've been very impressed here with Wood's performance, especially, like we say, she struggled in the race, and the fact that Sedakova has been sort of just only a second behind for the whole race. She's been under constant pressure, and normally in the race that's where we've seen cracks in her performances, but we've seen no cracks so far from her. She's been very composed with Sedakova all over the back of her. Yeah, absolutely, and this is, again, I think this is a big statement here, that Wood is someone who's really going to start to come into their own. Of course, there are so many different types of circuits as well here, so don't just think because Visser's winning at Monza and just because Visser's winning at COTA, that this will not change across the season. We've got so many different natured circuits as we do indeed progress through this esports league, and I'll be very, very surprised if we don't see the likes of 6, 7, maybe even 8 winners across this esports season. Again, 8 rounds still to go after this, with 3 races in each one, so 24 races in total. Plenty of opportunities for all of these drivers to indeed get those big points as we come up towards the end of the penultimate lap here. Sidakova there taking liberties there with the track limits, but just about keeps 2 wheels on the circuit. But it is Visser that leads by 9.2 seconds as it stands. Visser has been absolutely incredible here. She is on the final lap of today's race. Wood then is in P2, Sidakova P3. It is Tasmin Pepper who's in P4 right now, 5.2 seconds off of P3. And Pepper has been a very, very big surprise here. It's great to see her at the sharp end. Marty, then Neria Marty. I've not spoken too much about her. Just keeps getting the job done. Big points each week. We then got Marta Garcia. I think Marta Garcia is someone we're going to be looking at. Of course, she showed flashes of brilliance today, Billy, but just not consistent enough.
Yeah, consistency seems to have been a slight issue for her over the 3 races we've seen at round 2 here today. From race 1, again, she was leading for the majority of the race. She had a great start, but yeah. Oh, I think we've seen her mistake.
What's happened to Visser here then? So Visser was leading the race here, now down to P5. We need to get on board with Visser. Has Visser binned it somewhere? Because now it's Wood that leads the race. Sidokova's in P2, Pepper's in P3, Marty then is in P4. No, Visser is still in the lead of this race. I'm not too sure what is going on right now, but yeah, Bicycle Visser is still leading, so it's all good there. God, panic averted. Crikey, I thought it was all over.
Yeah, me too. I mean, our graphics here showed that Visser had dropped out of the race. A little bit of panic set in as we thought, oh, it's all gone up in the air with just 1 lap to go, or on the last lap right now. But yeah, her performance has warranted us to be more comfortable than we were just then.
Yeah, quite. That was not ideal. Through the double left-hander then for Visser. Again, it is the final lap of today's race. Wood then in P2, Sidokova in P3, Pepper in P4, and Marty in P5. But we haven't really spoke about Visser in terms of the dominance. It's been incredible from Beitske Visser. Again, took a double win in Monza. And it's looking very likely here as well at COTA. Runs a little bit wide there. Don't want to be taking too many chances. But as she comes up to the final corner of today's final race here at COTA for the W Series Esports League, it is a race victory. It's the second race victory of the day then for Visser, and congratulations to her. She does her mandatory apparently these days, pulls over, just stops the car, just casual.
Look at that, Beitske Visser, 100 points. Another impressive week for Irina Sidorkova, 86 points, and Alice Powell moves up to 3rd with 58 points, just 1 point behind Nerea Marti, one of the new drivers for 2020, in 4th. And Caitlin Wood, 56 points. She'll be delighted to get her first podium on W Series, well, in any series, whether it be last year or this year. And I'm delighted that she could convert her qualifying into that podium. And then you can see all the others. Don't forget there are points further back as well until 16th place. I think, though, gentlemen, there's names who are sort of gaining experience week on week, and you've talked about, from using your knowledge, the amount of work that has to go on during the week to get them race ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's exactly the same as in the real world motorsports. Indeed, you have to, if you fail to prepare to fail. It's very, very simple. The more hours you put in, the more time you're going to find. And we're starting to see a few drivers that maybe didn't in week 1 put a lot of time into it, starting to progress nicely, starting to find that lap time, and indeed starting to hook it together in races.
And Billy, in terms of the racetrack that we're heading to next, I think it's certainly one of our favourites as probably British-based motorsport journalist from my point of view, and a racing driver. It's Brands Hatch. But when we look at the finale where W Series went last year, well, we know that there's big names who do really well there, and it is a track that sort of favours the better drivers. Alice Powell won, Emma Kymäläinen was 2nd, Beitske Visser 3rd. So I know that Luke was desperately looking for more excitement, different names coming through, but it is a track that sometimes just favours the brave and favours the great.
Yeah, it really does. Brands Hatch, the Grand Prix circuit, is one of my particular favourites. When you go out to the back section where when you drive around it, you literally can't imagine that F1 cars are used to hack around there at 20, 30 mile an hour quicker than what you're doing when I drove it in British F3 or the girls in W Series. It's a real on the edge of your seat stuff, and it's really exciting. It definitely favours the brave. You've got to be really committed around the back part of Brands Hatch. So I'm sure that confidence is going to be key going into that week. And I mean, Visser, off the back of some strong performances, her confidence on the sim and the esports world's high. Alice, like you say, won there in real life. There's definitely going to be the big names, I think, will be up the front. And it will be interesting to kind of see out of the rookies, I guess you could say, who's going to sort of come to the front there, because I'm sure there'll be a few rookies up the front there challenging them all the way.
Thank you very much, gents. I know you're both back for our trip to Brands Hatch next week. And thank you very much to you at home for watching as well. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.